There are places in this world where the unexplained will suddenly become akin to comfort, allowing the bizarre to bleed into the atmosphere. Within the city of Jefferson, Texas, resides such a location, in the form of a hotel that shares the city's name, in which the things that go bump in the night have begun to open doors, roam the halls, and reveal themselves. The question is why? Why is this happening? Having never been there, I can't answer that question. But on October 1st and 2nd, 50 of you will have the chance to join me for a weekend-long paranormal investigation at AGH Presents The Ghosts of the Jefferson Hotel. My friends, I am incredibly excited about this event. To those of you that have already purchased your tickets, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you face to face in Jefferson, Texas. And for those of you who wish to join us at AGH Presents The Ghost of the Jefferson Hotel, VIP tickets are sold out and there's only 15 gold tickets left. But you can get your gold tickets while they last by clicking the ticket link, which I've posted below in the description box. Having said that, let's jump right into the In a Crowded Room podcast. Hey, what's up everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for episode number 132, I believe, which we are going to do a Q&A, as it has been a very long time since I've done one, and I've amassed quite a few questions from you guys to answer, in which I'm kind of excited about this one because, as you guys know, I like the questions that I've never been asked before, or things that are kind of, a little off to the left, For those of you that are interested in a lot of the, repeat questions that I get, things like, what is your favorite place to ghost hunt? What's the scariest thing you've ever seen? Stuff like that. I invite you to go back to previous Q&A episodes and listen. And each time I do this for you guys, I try to pick the most interesting questions that I haven't been asked before, and if I answer, I'm going to answer you honestly. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. Okay, scroll down here. Okay, Jen from Kentucky wants to know what I think about Dr. Greer's new movie, and I'm assuming you're talking about the Cosmic Hoax. Believe it or not, I actually watched it last night at about 3 a.m. And yeah, it kind of reconfirms my thought that I believe Skyfall is from Dr. Greer's camp. In some form, I think he is. And I have messaged Skyfall to ask him that directly, and I'm waiting to hear back to, as to what he says. But look, I thought it was, really cool. And it was a cool documentary, and a lot of it makes sense. There's not all of it to me, but a lot of it makes sense. I mean, the thing that makes the most sense to me is that if there is an extraterrestrial presence here, at least to date, they have not presented us with an existential threat. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I took away from the film that makes sense to me. And I know a lot of people, are down on Dr. Greer and do he's just trying to make money and sell movies. And I never understand any of that. It's like, how are any of these guys or myself or anybody supposed to, be heard or get your voice out there without making money? Since when did making money become like a bad thing? I don't understand that train of thought. I never have. I never will. This whole keep it real principle is the stupidest shit I've ever heard. Keep it real. I mean, if Dr. Greer didn't want anybody to hear what he had to say, or the 25, 30 years of information he's compiled, then he can just sit in his living room and compile it for himself. But that's not his goal. His goal is to get it out there to the world. And if you want to get something out there to the world, whether it's movie, music, a message, anything, buckle up, man, because it's going to take a lot of capital to do that. It's just the reality of it. And if people support you in that process, then good for you. I think he's doing a great job of getting his message out there, and his message is a positive one, which obviously I support. So I thought it was a very good documentary. So yeah, check it out, everybody. I think you all would actually like it. It's for free. Just go to YouTube and search The Cosmic Hoax, and you could watch it. Okay. Yeah, see, this is a big question. What's cool about all these questions is most of these are questions I haven't been asked before. But John Beluga from Toronto wants to know if I believe in God, and if so, what is my denomination? Well, John, I don't have a denomination. I'm not Catholic, I'm not, Protestant, Lutheran, Methodist, whatever. But I certainly believe in a creator, if not for any other reason. I don't know how something starts from nothing. When I look around the world, I've never seen anything that just appears without design behind it. From animals to buildings to artwork to anything. I've never seen that happen. And for a long time, I didn't really know what God was, or the concept of it seemed really weird to me. But I always remember thinking about what I just said. Everything comes from something. But there are some things that are so divine that they're just unspoken, and you just kind of feel it. And for me, I think I've mentioned this possibly in a blog that I've written before. But the first time I held my daughter in my hands and just looked at that creation, and you look down and you see this amazing, just perfection. And you kind of realize that creation it's so much bigger than anything you could do with your two hands, I don't know. I'm probably choosing my words wrong, but it's just this overwhelming feeling and security that there was an intelligent design that just far exceeded anything I could ever do. And that kind of cemented it for me. And there's been other things along the way that have made me feel that way. But yeah, I do believe in a creator. I absolutely do. Unless somebody can show me how something can be created from nothing, and then maybe that would change my mind. But I think there has to be. And now again, is that beyond my realm of ultimate understanding? Absolutely. But I do feel as though there is a God or a creator. So, okay, moving on. Kelly Sprite from Dallas, Texas wants to know if I would do another demonic case if someone called and asked me for help. The answer is no, I would not. And again, this is one of those answers that if you're not a believer, it just all sounds like bullshit. But, I don't think you have to necessarily believe in the Catholic legions, demons, Bilal, all these names, remove all that. Do you believe that there's good and evil in the world? And do you believe that it can affect someone? That there is an intelligent design behind evil and also good? Again, in my lifetime, there's always been yin to the yang in everything. And I see it in everything, And if you kind of overdose on anything, there's an equal and opposite reaction. On cases that I've been on that were, quote, demonic cases, including my own, which I'm working on something right now that kind of relates to this question. But yeah, look, I've seen too much to say that I don't believe. it's like I wish I could transfer you all into those. Well, I mean, I don't, because you pay a heavy price for it, and I have. I mean, the last demonic case that I was on, half the people are dead, and the other people that were there have been driven out of my life. And I had my own struggles too. I mean, nobody gets to just be a voyeur at those types of things. And when you see the true design of evil and madness and see the damage that it does, I've just never been on the winning end of a demonic case. I've never left and had our work matter. Everybody that I know that was involved in these cases paid heavily, and evil won every time. And I realized it's just like with the Skyfall case and Craig Sternofface, all that stuff. The further and further you push down that hole, you can only go so far down the rabbit hole before it comes up to meet you. And, the more you want to scratch at the unknown, the deeper and deeper wound you're going to get. And I just decided a long time ago, I never had the calling to be an exorcist. I never had the calling to, be a demonologist. I absolutely wanted to document it, to show people the true reality of evil. And I've done that to the degree that I'm willing, with the exception of one more thing that I have to do, which, again, you'll hear about it more in the future. But, yeah, if someone called me and said, we need you, Chad Calek, to come document this demonic possession case, I would thank them for calling, tell them no thank you, and would direct them to their archdiocese for people who have a calling to do that. The juice is not worth the squeeze for me. So that's just my honest answer. I mean, I don't know if that's uninspiring or not, but that's my answer. So, Cleo DeVille, which, dare I say, that's probably not your Christian name, wants to know if I think Paranormal State will ever come back. Well, I'll tell you what, Cleo. I've said this many times. I included this question, even though it's been asked to me a bunch of times, because, oddly enough, I have a different answer this time. Although I still don't believe it will ever actually reform, I did recently get a phone call in which I was asked if I would be willing to come back and do Paranormal State. In which my initial answer was no. And then I got another phone call to ask me why, and we discussed it. And I just, see, there's so many things, man, that are on the inside that people just don't know. And it wasn't necessarily on my end, in the sense that I said, look, these are the things that would have to happen for me to be involved. And some of those things they would have to take care of, and a couple of them I would have to take care of with other people. But I don't know where it's at right now, because I just said, here's where I stand, and gave them where I stood. I didn't rule it completely out, and I should know more in the future. My gut still tells me there's too many. There's there's too many bridges that have just been singed. I mean, when I think of the path back to Paranormal State, it is just wrought with burning ember just everywhere. And to make it through that on the other side would be really interesting. The question that was put to me, too, it was a different format. And they said they wanted to, essentially build it around myself, Ryan, and Chip. As far as, like, the main, like, I guess, crux. The cast would be bigger, but that's what they wanted to kind of circle the stories around. So to be clear, it would be a bigger cast than that, but that's like kind of how they viewed, or what they said they viewed the heart of it. Like I said, I didn't rule it out, but I told them I honestly don't think it could ever happen if I know the people involved well. And a lot has happened in the last last decade now. But hey, man, in this crazy, this crazy life we live, maybe there will come a time where Paranormal State hits the screen. And I do know that if you put myself, Ryan, and Chip on screen together and put any number of people around us in the cast, us three together have kind of proven itself to be a reliable, trio. I think Taddy's awesome. Katrina's awesome. But I don't know how that would. Katrina's off doing her thing. Taddy is a good friend of mine, and we still hang out and do events together. And she's doing her thing too. And I'm really proud of those girls. And so I don't know. My gut says 90% chance no, but I would have told you a year ago there wouldn't be a 1% chance. So that door is cracked. So time will tell. That's the answer that I can't believe that I'm saying, but time will tell. Okay, Darren Miles from Australia wants to know if Paleface has been filmed and when it will be released. It has not been filmed yet for a very, very good reason. I kind of spoke, I feel, and maybe this is just my, I think about things way too much sometimes. But I feel like before Phantom Rider came out, I shared too much, which I think I wish that I wouldn't have, because I just want you guys to see what we've been documenting. So I've made myself a promise with Paleface that I'm just not letting anything out of the bag until the film is done. But we have not filmed it yet, but there will come a time in the near future where I turn my focus back to Paleface. Now, keep in mind, the investigation into Craig Cernovich is ongoing at all times. And yes, weird things have continued, and yes, they've escalated. But I'm focusing on a couple other projects right now while maintaining that one. But my guess, it would probably be 2023. It's probably going to be another year and a half before Paleface is filmed and comes out. That'd be my guess. So I'm just doing the best I can to answer you. So, okay, Jessica from Altoona, Iowa. Okay, so wow, that's Des Moines basically. This is kind of a Paranormal State one. It's a Buell question. Hi, Chad. I'm a fan of both you and Ryan Buell, and I would love to see you both work together again. Also, Ryan has been open about his battle with addiction. If it's okay to ask, when did you know he was addicted, and did you try to help him? Well, see, here's the weird thing, man. When you say when was somebody addicted, there's a great line in Suicide Note by Pantera, where Phil Anselmo is singing about heroin addiction. And he describes it in a really unique way. He says, sliding down the slide that breaks the will. Meaning it's slow and it's gradual. And by the time you get to the bottom, you're like, wow, I'm at the bottom and I'm addicted. That's kind of how addiction goes for most people. Understand that it is not like Ryan was running around on set and only he was using drugs. Man, everybody was. Whether it's alcohol, weed, speed, Adderall, Coke, Oxy, welcome to Hollywood, man. Welcome to sets, you know? I mean, everybody, and not 100% of people, but, you know, look, have I done pills with Ryan? Of course. But I've also done them with 3 other cast members, too. I'm not going to say who they are. I'm not going to snitch people out right now. But listen, this was part of a coping mechanism, man. You know, it's the same reason why every film set I've ever been on for long periods of times, everybody is just fucking like rabbits, man. And they call them location ships. That's the reality. That's the reality of that life. You know, that last year that I had a paranormal state, I took 66 plane flights and was gone for 8 months out of the year. Okay? So it's a wild life. And, you know, if you want to know what my time with Ryan was like, I mean, dude, watch Entourage. I mean, very similar. You know, we would film and then bounce out to New York and do the wildest, craziest stuff and make it back to set barely to film the next episode. You know, we were much younger then. It was a decade ago. You know, I was still in my, you know, early 30s, late 20s, just stretching that kind of party life out. So I was never sitting around, like Ryan's not my son. You know, I wasn't sitting around watching his drug intake and going, are you okay? I just noticed one day he wasn't. And it was the last season. I don't remember which episode that it hit me that he was really, really in trouble. But we had a brief conversation about it, you know, where I told him he could come to me, and I told him that, you know, we can figure something out and get him help. But the thing is this, man, I've been through addiction, you know, I've been through it twice. It almost killed me once. I mean, it's what I know about addiction is all the talking in the world is not going to save somebody. Like, they really, that old saying, you got to hit rock bottom. I mean, you know, yeah. And I don't even know that you necessarily got to hit rock bottom, because at least for me, in my cases, rock bottom wasn't like, it was an emotional thing. It was like getting to a place where I just knew I don't want to be the person that I was. I mean, the thing about addicts is they lie about their addiction nonstop. And the thing about lying is you can only do it so long before you start to forget what the fuck the truth is. And, you know, and one lie, it's stacked on another lie, stacked on another lie. And pretty soon you're lying to offset lies. I noticed Ryan had moved into that stage. So my biggest thing was, well, listen, I'm going to try to be his friend and as close to him that I can. So when he falls, hopefully I'll be around to try to help. Because there's no forcing. You can't force someone into rehab. And, you know, unfortunately I wasn't around, you know, when that happened. And fortunately, you know, I should say for me, you know, because my daughter was born. And that had to become my focus. Period. You know, and there was nothing on planet Earth that was going to take my focus away from that. So the way I thought I could best help Ryan was get him through the contractual season that he had, that we were filming. And I do remember the last 2 or 3 episodes was exceptionally bad. And by the way, everybody knew. I mean, it's not like the network was confused or the crew was confused. Everybody knew. Everyone was talking about it. And they deemed me his keeper for some reason. I was having side meetings with producers about it. And is Ryan okay? Can you get him through this? Like, blah, blah, blah. And for me, I just felt, when you do an intervention with somebody, and not that I ever did an intervention with Ryan, to be honest, there was no one around that wanted to do intervention. If Ryan was paying you, everybody was just happy as shit to be his friend at that time, which, you know, disgusts me. So I felt like when the season ended, I did one event with Ryan. I wanted him to come to Iowa, more than anything to hang out with them, but to do this like AGH event, talk about good times, all that stuff. And he didn't show up. And this was long before his Canadian tour that went south, and probably a year before that. So my form of intervention was just doing exactly what people do when they have an intervention, which is saying, hey, listen, you've got to get help or you don't get this thing. Usually this thing is like it's like saying, I can't hang out with you. I can't be a part of what you're doing because I don't support you dying, and I don't support like the way you're living, and I really love you, man, and care about you and want you to get help. And there will always be a part of me that loves Ryan Buell dearly. I know a side of him that trust me, nobody knows but me. We people joked that we had a bromance. Very true, very true. But not in that type of way. But like, we were the best of friends. We were inseparable for years. And this whole idea that somebody made or someone was supplying Ryan, or that's when I met Ryan, he had graduated college from Penn State. You think there was something that wasn't introduced to him by that age? I mean, the thing about Ryan is he had charisma, charm, money, ability, and people, throwing everything at him. Anything he wants. And I was in the same position at that time. I mean, anything I wanted, you can get when you're running around, you're young, and you're doing well, and you're famous, and it's a lifestyle most people won't ever understand. So I'm not upset for Ryan, falling victim to addiction. That doesn't make Ryan a weak person. I mean, Eminem went through addiction. You think Eminem's a weak person? Listen, man, you don't get to the top of any ladder like that being weak. I mean, the thing about opiates is there is no caste system for it. There is no class of individual, from lawyers to doctors to, the lowliest street heroin addict. It doesn't matter. You put it in your mouth, science wins. That's a fact. So I was never upset at Ryan that he fell victim to addiction. I mean, I was upset that it happened, but I wasn't like, oh, he's a monster for that. I was just upset that he... Yeah, see, it's just hard to talk about. You got to find that thing that you love more than the drug. You got to find that thing. That's the only way to beat it. Like, you want no bullshit answer? That's it. That's how you beat opiate addiction. 93% of people cannot beat it, ever. Once you're hooked, 93% cannot beat it. So 7%. And I kept waiting for Ryan to find that thing. And eventually, look, I was looking at all the same news articles and all that stuff, and everybody assumed I was like talking to him the whole time when years had gone by where we had texted a few times, and that was it. And it was just because I couldn't be around it. And I was watching it happen. Now I hope, because I know he's talking about this now, people have told me, look, I hope that he's grown to understand it in the way that you kind of have to understand what addiction is. Each person has to kind of wrap their own mind around it. I had to do it as well. And I hope that he's truly found that thing that he loves more than the addiction, because that is the only way to beat it. And Ryan and I have not talked since he got off everything. And that's, man, very much by my choice, and I'm sure by his. I mean, Ryan and I never, we did not bullshit each other when we would talk. And there's things that I am hurt by that would have to be resolved if we were to ever work together again. And maybe he feels the same way. But there are just some things that did hurt to the core. It hurt now when I think about it. But I wish him, sincerely, I wish him the best. And I wish that experience will guide him in becoming a man's man. And we all have to go through that. I had to go through it, where you leave the boyhood, you leave it behind. And you learn that when you're a man, that means you stand up and you take credit for what you did, and you stop pointing fingers, and you realize that you're the one driving your life. Because that's the only way you can make it better, is if you know you're in control. And I've always had hope that there's some kind of conversation yet to be had. But I'm not ready to make that call. I don't know that I'm ready to have it. I'm still doing my thing. And I would urge him to focus on himself and making sure he's all right. And making sure he's beaten that thing before he takes that next step, which is, admitting what you've done, talking to the people that you've hurt, making things right, all the stuff that makes you a man. And if that ever happens, and maybe it has, it hasn't between he and I, but if that ever happens, Ryan Buell knows he can knock on my door. And if that happens, and we resolve some things, it's a long life. So, will we work together? The short answer to your question is, never say never. Okay. You got me with that one, Jessica. That was a good question. Jim from Massachusetts says, "Hey Chad, let me start by saying I'm a 35-year-old recovering alcoholic with 3 years sober after battling for a decade to stop drinking. I heard you say that you drank a lot in your band just before you stopped cold turkey due to bad decisions you made. How did you stop cold turkey? As I tried that method many times, only to go back to the bottle even harder." Well, here's the thing. Like alcohol, I was never like hooked at all. I never really liked alcohol. Alcohol to me was like a means to an end. Like I'm a binge drinker, so like I'm not drinking for the taste. I'm drinking to get, to blast off, right? And I've said this before, especially as a younger man, and well, I guess still today, it's why I just don't drink. It's just, I don't make good decisions on alcohol, period. And I know that. And just over time, and, I'm just not a good guy on alcohol. I'm a happy drunk, but I'm not a good guy on it, I was not a faithful husband at all during those drinking years. I wasn't great to my friends. I would disappear in places with strange people. I just literally just woke up one day and was like, enough is enough, man. I don't even like this stuff. I don't want to be this person. And I was about 24, 25 when I stopped drinking. And I was able to cold turkey because it wasn't something that my body was physically addicted to. And yeah, everybody has their demon, I've, especially when I was in my band, I probably tried every drug there was to do at least once. And the only one that was ever a problem for me was years later when a doctor slapped a fentanyl patch on my arm. And that like I said, man, that shit turned me into a god. At least that's how I felt. And that's the problem, is that you're not. You're a very compromisable human being. And the second you think you're anything other than, you got problems. So I congratulate you on 3 years sober, if that's, something that you're proud of. Some people don't even care what the years are. They just choose to be, say I'm sober. And to other people, that's not even a thing to aspire to. So I guess I should say, for you, it sounds like it's something you needed. And I'm happy for you. And don't worry about how many times you said here you went back to the bottle even harder. There's an old saying that relapse is part of recovery, and that's a fact. I don't know anybody who's ever had an addiction just once. I just don't. Usually, there is a process of falling off the wagon, but you got to climb back on. So alcohol just wasn't hard for me. That's my answer. I just chose to cold turkey it, and I was able to without any physical problems. But it sounds like you were a professional. So, having said that, Jim, I do wish you the best, my friend. Very good question, and thank you for asking. Melanie from Atlanta, Melanie from the Atlanta area says, I heard you've been with your wife since you were 15. You do know that most couples don't last. So what gives? What's the secret sauce? That's a good question. I've said before, I married like my best friend. But what's interesting is Laura and I just had a talk about this because our anniversary is coming up on August 12th. And it is more than that. It's a lot more than that. Because there's a lot of couples that, marry their best friend and find out 5 years later they're not compatible, right? I can only answer from my angle and kind of, how I view my relationship with Laura. And I've kind of realized that there were a lot of things that led to us working. And it hasn't been without struggle at all. There's been really dark times we've gone through and really amazing times. And, but I think the best answer I could say is that I think Laura is exceptionally intelligent. And beyond that, I think she knew that I was a very flawed man. And when she met me, she was extremely conservative and quiet, and I was a wild man. And I would pull her in a direction she would never go on her own, and she enjoyed it. And she enjoyed the fact that, she would go all these places and do all these crazy things, and, that I would pull her into the circle pit at the Suicidal Tendencies show, and her favorite artist was like Madonna, things like that, and we've always been really open about the fact of how different we are in some ways, but how much we complement each other. And I think that's probably the biggest part of the glue, is that she slows me down, I speed her up. And the other part of it, and I've said this before, and I think this is the most important part, is Laura's never tried to change me. She was always willing to give me the time and life experiences to do whatever I wanted, as long as I was good to her, as long as I loved her, as long as I made her feel loved, as long as I would include her, in my life. We didn't anchor our relationship to anything sexual. We didn't anchor it to some kind of ultimatum. We didn't anchor it to, you have to change and become this. I know Laura would tell you that I was considered like the bad boy. And I know why. I mean, you don't see it when you're living it, but when I look back, I'm like, yeah, Jesus Christ, that was insane, man. And I had dated and cheated on all of her friends. And that's why it took 2 years of me asking her just to go to a movie, in which for the first year and 10 months, her answer was literally, fuck off. Like, until one day I caught her with the right joke and she smiled and laughed. And I asked her to go see White Men Can't Jump, in which she told me, no, because you're dating Laura King at the time, which I was. I was dating another girl when I asked her out. And I said, but if I wasn't, what if I dumped her? Would you come to the movie with me? And she said, well, you'd have to ask me when you're single. And so I went for it. But over the years, she was just willing. She was never going to be a reason that I wouldn't experience what I needed in life to kind of slow down and focus on what matters. I think had she ever tried to change me, we would not have worked. Had she ever told me once that I couldn't do something that I wanted, we wouldn't have worked. You see, Laura was never like, I want you to be, my best friend and tell me all your secrets or we're done. Or, if you ever cheat on me, we're done. Or if you ever do this drug or party or you ever do, like, we're done. Like, Laura is not a person of ultimatums. Laura wanted me to come to her and say, I could see on your face, without you saying a word, that what I'm doing is hurting you. And even though I can get away with it, I don't want to hurt you. And that day came, I mean, it definitely came. Where you kind of look back at your life and you go, was I good enough for her? And on my end, I've always been with Laura because I aspire to be her. She's like my dad. As beautiful as she is on the outside, she's even more beautiful inside, And she's just a rock, man. She's like a piece of iron. You just cannot keep her down. She just can take every blow and still keep moving forward. Because she knows where that end is. She always knew that we wanted to get to where we are today. And anything you want in life, it's worth fighting for, man. And it's worth dying for. And more than anything, she reminds me of my dad. She's a good person. Oh shit, you guys are getting me these questions, man. I'm sorry, guys. Let me shake this off. A little emotional here, but that's my answer. That's why we've been together for so long. Okay, 1 second. I gotta take a little smoke break here. I'll be right back. Okay, everybody. I apologize for getting all choked up there, but like I said, I have a pretty special wife. So, 2 more questions. Deanna Walker from Worcester, Mass. wants to know. This is kind of in relation to the last question, but Deanna Walker from Worcester, Mass. wants to know what kind of student I was, and if I ever thought about speaking to a high school audience. Like I said, I was a popular kid. I was definitely. But see, okay, Neola Tri Center was pretty much built on sports. Okay. And it just so wound it up that every sport that I played, I always wanted to be like the leader. Like I was a quarterback and a middle linebacker. In baseball, which was my primary sport, I was a first baseman and a pitcher, which those two positions, get the ball the most, and I hit cleanup. So like I was always heavily involved in sports, and that was kind of a get out of jail free card in our school. And by the way, that school was so messed up. I mean, we had teachers sleeping with students, teachers black market selling student stuff on a daily basis. Like it was the worst. Oh my God, man. Yeah, half those teachers should have been locked up. And I saw that, and I didn't respect hardly anybody. So at the same time, while I was like an all-state, all-conference athlete, I also refused to give respect to teachers that did not deserve it. So I was kind of a problem for them, but they didn't know how to handle it because they couldn't expel me for anything because that would mean I would miss baseball. And I was arguably the best player on our team, or football, and that's life around there. So they couldn't expel me. That was one reason. The second reason was none of them wanted to come face to face with my crazy fucking mother, and they all knew it. They talked about it. That entire school feared Debbie Calek, and if you watch American Ghost Hunter, you can understand why. You don't know who's going to walk through the door. You don't know what's going to happen. I've told a teacher that. I had a teacher try to give me they call it an furrow, which is like you have to stay after school. And I told her I wasn't. I was going home. It's my French teacher. And she started telling me that I would do what she said or I'd be expelled. And I said, well, why don't you and my mom have a conversation about it? And needless to say, I left school and I wasn't expelled. Nothing happened. So Laura would tell you that I was a wild man and that I was, a bad boy and a class clown and all that. And I was to a pretty ridiculous degree. But I would tell you, I was just very political. Like from a very early age. And I think it's because I had an iron fist mother. I had to learn how to manipulate the situation to where I could have freedom. It's like this old line we had in this 35 Inch Motor song written by old Dusty Feuerbach. He said, with no window of opportunity, I cut myself a door. And that's how I kind of looked at my high school. And I'll give you a prime example of what I'm talking about. So my senior year, last semester, the only thing that I give a fuck about is baseball. I just want to get done with baseball, and then I'm off to my fraternity that I was joining in college. So the last semester comes up, and when we started signing up for courses, I started realizing that if I lined the courses up that I wanted, I could probably figure out how I only had to show up for 2 hours out of each day, and I could leave. Which was my first my first class was a history class that I liked, and then it would go like, I can't remember the exact way it was, but it was like study hall, PE, study hall, then it was lunch, then it was job tech, and French. Okay, so my job tech class was this guy named Barney Johnson, and that was just a class that was designed to get you ready for the workforce. And the whole thing was at some point throughout that final semester, you needed to get a job and you had to report 45 hours that you worked there. And at the end, you would take a test and you would get a grade. Anyways, the job tech course was one of those teachers that was like selling stuff to kids every day out of his briefcase, whether it be candy or he'd bring sodas to the room. And he would literally sell them like he was a vendor. It was insane. And then the next course was my French course, which Mrs. Gims and I did not get along, man. I didn't hate her per se. I just thought she was a terribly egotistic, wield her power type of teacher. And we were at it constantly. Like we were at each other's throats. I had taken 4 years of French. This was my last semester. So I was in the job tech course, and I'd already got a job at a place called Babbage's at the mall, which Babbage's was like an early software video game, like computer software for video games. They would sell like Sony PlayStations and back then 3DOs. And I had convinced them, if they hired me, that if you let somebody play video games in the store, you'll sell more games by having like me play video games so people can see them. So I was supposed to be kind of like a shelf stalker, and my job was now to play video games at Baptist. Which it actually worked. Kids bought more shit by just seeing it, and they saw it, and so it was great. So I showed up to that job tech course, which is right after lunch, and Barney and I just started fighting like back and forth. And he finally said to me, you know, you don't got to be here. If you want to leave, you can go. And I was like, seriously? he said it as like a threat. You know what I mean? So I'm like, so I don't got to be here. And he's like, yeah, I'm not, I'm not strapping you down. You don't want to be here? This isn't a part of your future. I said, no. I already got a job. I said, I'll tell you what, man. I said, what do you base like the grade on? This is all prep for us to get a job. Well, I have a job, and I'll be more than happy to bring you my slip for 45 hours, and I'll take the test on the last day, and if I get a passing grade, then you pass me. Can we agree upon that? I said, because if you can, I will never come back to this class again until the final day. I'll give you my 45 hours, and I'll take your test. And he agreed to it. So I was like, okay, awesome. So I had one more course, which is the French course. I walked in, Mrs. Gams and I, like I said, we were at each other's throat. I walked in and I said, look, here's the deal. I will never come back to this course. You will never have to deal with me. You will never have to deal with, my mother, referrals, anything. Give me a C. Give me a C. And I'm gone. Our time's done here. And she agreed to it. So I remember telling Laura, I'm like, Laura, I literally only have to come to school for 2 hours. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I got history, and then there's a study hall right after. No, it was history PE. It was history PE study hall. Sorry, guys. I go, so I have history and then PE. And I go, I don't have to go to the study halls. And then it's lunch. Then it's job tech, and Barney and I just cut a deal. And then it's French, and Miss Gams and I just cut a deal. So literally all I got to do is show up and do PE. This history course that I liked. And we're out of here. I mean, it was unbelievable. And she's like, are you kidding me? So I just started showing up. I'd go to those 2 courses, and I leave. And then finally our principal sees me walking out, and he said, are you leaving every day? He goes, because I see you drive up here, but then I heard you're just taking off. And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, explain to me what's going on. And I totally explained it to him, and he's just looking at me, he's chewing gum, he's just staring at me. I go, listen, man, can we be honest? Can we have a real conversation? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, the only thing I give a fuck about is baseball. And I got it set up where no matter what, I want to be eligible. Okay? I'm not doing anything bad. I'm not doing drugs. I'm not running around. I just don't want to be here. Just give me a couple hours and I'm gone. He chews his gum for a while, and he giggles, and he goes, I got you. We can handle that. Okay. And that is literally how my senior... And Laura was just like, you are unbelievable. The rest of us have to go to a full day of school, and you got to go to 2 hours. So that's what I would say. I would say I was political. I learned early there was a system going on, even if it was a microcosmic little society right there. And if you pressed the right buttons, and if you pushed back when it was time, and if you had, everything's a negotiation in life, right? Everything is a negotiation. The second Barney said, you don't got to be here, I was like, well, let's talk about this. If that's how you feel, because I feel the same way. And Miss Gams was like, hey, this kid could speak. Every time he asks me for a drink, he speaks in French. Madame Gam, est-ce que je peux aller s'il vous plaît? And she's like, he knows his French. Like, what is going on? And, so I worked it out, man. And so that's, I guess, what kind of student I was. I finished, 7th in my class. I had a 3.7 GPA. Never took a book home to study, ever. Not one. And, I don't know. It did seem somewhat easy to me. My problem was, it was just boredom, absolute boredom. That was my biggest issue in high school. But Laura would tell you that I was a madman. I would say I was political. That's my answer. So, okay, last question here. which is totally different, which is kind of cool. John from Toronto wants to know my prediction for McGregor Poirier 3. And also, what do you think about what the Paul brothers are doing with boxing? McGregor Poirier 3, I like McGregor, but I don't know that he has the will to be a champion since he's collected about $500 million. And he was on the top of the Forbes list, number one. And since then, I think he's something like, what? I think he's 2-3 or 2-4. Like, he's lost a lot of fights. I mean, he lost to Khabib. He lost to Poirier last time. He lost to Floyd. I mean, there's not, the only thing he's won is the Cowboy fight. And granted, he hit Cowboy 19 out of 20 strikes, and Cowboy got nothing off. But yeah, when you don't have that fire in your belly, I mean, I don't know. Conor certainly isn't the same guy that he was a couple years ago. But, he showed up to his Poirier fight in a yacht in Abu Dhabi, or Dubai, I mean. Not Abu Dhabi, Dubai. So it's not the same type of drive. I hope it's a fun fight. One of the best fights I ever saw was Nate Diaz and Conor 2, the second fight. And I love Nate Diaz, man, big time. Probably my favorite fighter is Nate Diaz. So I don't know. If Conor can truly find the motivation and realize that he went from being a 2-time world champion to rank 6th in his weight class, if he can find that motivation, we've all seen, him go lights out on people. I mean, the first time he fought Poirier, beat him in 42 seconds. First time he fought Aldo, beat him in 12 seconds. Fought Cowboy, beat him in, I think, like 14 seconds. He has an ungodly left hand, and he comes out on fire, But Conor's kind of showed if you can go past the first round with him, you got a pretty good shot of beating him. So I don't know. It's going to be a fun fight. I'm excited to see it. Yeah. And as far as the Paul brothers, look, I know there's all kinds of hate for like what they're doing, but I don't know how to hate them. I mean, they're leveraging their following to live their dreams. And, maybe Logan didn't, work to fight Floyd, but let's be real. Logan didn't fight Floyd in his prime for the belts. It was an exhibition. And Logan got in shape, and, obviously the brothers are working on, getting better at boxing. I think Jake's the better boxer. Jake definitely has knockout power, which is crazy, and the top strikers in the world have said that. The top analysts in the world have said that. But, is a guy that's been boxing for 3 years suddenly going to have the skill set to beat like a Zab Judah or something like that? No, of course not. So, I think they're being really strategic with their people that they're picking. I think Jake's fight with Woodley coming up, I have Woodley winning that fight. I just don't see, I think it's too big of a jump. But here's the thing, he signed with Showtime Boxing, Jake did. So he's got legitimate skills. And every boxer has even said this. Mike Tyson said this. I mean, Zab Judah said this about Jake. And the thing with him, win or lose, you want to watch. He just knows how to sell things. But am I like a fan of them as boxers? No. But I am a fan of what they're doing, with their fan base, which they both worked very hard to build. So I think it's a new era, man. It's a new time. And if you can get eyes on things, you can live your dreams. And those guys are pushing it. So I think it's very cool what they're doing. So having said that, guys, great questions. Thank you all so much. I will do this again. I think taking more time in between them, like I said, is actually a better plan because there's just a bigger pool of questions to choose from. So I thank you guys for that. I hope you enjoyed this Q&A and this episode of the In a Crowded Room podcast. And I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.